and they got in a fight and then stabbed. It was a whole thing.
Wow.
So it didn't really have anything to do with
he marry
being
her?
homeless.
Okay.
Did he make an honest woman out of her?
No, we actually don't know what happened to Wes. I think he had to leave the islands after that.
Does word get around quick on the island when you're fucking around like that?
Yeah, especially because it was like a Hawaiian family thing. So you don't mess with the locals. He had to go.
He was a Howley?
He was a Howley.
Oh, shit. No,
Yeah.
you're fucked then, dude.
Yeah, he had to go.
Yeah, you are out.
Yeah.
You're going to wind up.
It was one of like the
Whatever the
families.
Hawaiian version is swimming with the fishes.
Yeah. Well, that's how I found out. I was working for a Hawaiian gangster and it was like in that family. And so then when they said like, yeah, they stabbed that guy Wes that lives in the park, I'm like, oh shit, like I know him. So yeah, Hawaii was a weird time.
One of my friends, her first job out of college was working she worked the cash register for a front for a drug dealer. And I think she knew that they were drug dealers, but she just assumed that whenever anybody would like buy random like gum and stuff, that you just get $100 tip. Like the first year of her life, she's just like, yeah, people just give you $100 tips all the time for. She had no idea, and then like got another job and was like, this is bullshit. Like I'm serving coffee, people tip me $1.
Yeah.
In Hoboken, the pizza place next to me, I slowly realized was a mob front. Well, I'm assuming is a mob front. Pizza place, cash only, closed on weekends, even Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh God.
There was a I think one of those in Oklahoma or in Norman where I went to school where I found it was called Toto's. I think it's gone now, but it was a little like corner pizza shop, and I found it and was like, this is great, really like it, and was the only customer for like a year and a half, with the exception of one time when there was an Italian family and a big bouncer that just watched me the entire time I ate, like where the Italian family was over there. And I took a date there one time, and Giuseppe, one of the waiters, came out and went, like he's just chatting with us, and he's like, what are you studying? And she's like, I'm doing Russian. And he's like, oh, that's great. I speak Russian. And he, like, I'm not doing the Italian accent, but he was Italian. And I was like, Giuseppe, you speak Italian and English and Russian? That's very impressive. And he went, back during the Cold War, it is not important. I'll go get your appetizers. And I was like, all right, something fun's happening here.
Yeah, I got in trouble with a coworker because for one summer I was a receptionist at a hair salon. And so when we would get walk-ins, I would try and spread it out. And there was this one guy that he didn't work a lot. And so I was just like, you know what, I'll give him a walk-in. So I give him a walk-in. He does the hair. He comes over and he's like, what the fuck did you do that for? I was like, what are you talking about? I figured that you'd want someone. You haven't done anything in a while. And he's like, I'm not here to do hair. Like I had no idea that he was selling drugs out the back. And I basically killed his business for an hour. Sorry, won't happen again. He was just renting the chair as his front. Which is actually kind of genius. There's so much like cash and tips and stuff that happens in a hair salon. So, yeah, it's pretty smart.
This is good to know. I feel like as somebody that looks like an ethnic narc, it would be very difficult for me to break into these worlds. So I'm keeping at the back of my mind, like if I need to become a Saul Goodman character, how do I do this?
Yeah, like I was such a good girl. It never occurred to me that he's just sitting back there dealing drugs. So it was like, he's like, don't you know what's going on? I'm like, no, you're going to have to be very blunt with me.
I would love to see you, Heaton, in like try to infiltrate different communities. Like I would love to see you in like a battle rap like outfit.
Yeah, that would be a good Discovery Channel
Hey guys,
show.
just so you know, a white man has infiltrated our area. I think we all need to be on the lookout.
It's just like, I don't know. I think we should kill him, right? Right? I think we should go and kill him.
Listen, gang, before we go out and meet the Crips, I'm reminded of the Queen's speech to the troops at Tillsbury.
So we picked a hell of a week to not do a show.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it here.
Yeah.
But
This was a very long month.
We're still in July.
It's insane.
It might never end.
Yeah, there's that. What is there? I'm not in the habit of quoting Vladimir Lenin, but he said there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen.
Yeah.
And last couple of weeks was a decade week.
Well, the immunity ruling was in July.
That in and of itself would have been enough.
Yeah, and that's how we started the month. That feels like 6 months ago. Like no one's even talking about it.
Yeah. No, nobody at all. Yeah. Well, except for Joe Biden.
Sort of Biden.
He talked about it.
He
this
did.
week.
He came up with those
Although
judicial
he's
reforms.
just wandering the countryside now, just doing whatever the hell he wants.
That must feel nice. It's got to be some kind of relief to just not have the pressure of having to run for office when you're 80 something.
I don't think
years
so.
old.
I think that's the only thing holding them together. It's like you see like a car with duct tape keeping the muffler from falling off on the highway. The duct tape for him is being and running for president. Like for all of them, there's a lot of them where like when Arlen Specter retired, like he dropped dead the following day. I don't like because they know like the second I leave, I have no purpose. My entire life has been built around this, and I can't just go golf. And then they die.
Well, that's a cheery thought.
Yeah.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young.
I'm Andrew Heaton.
I'm Jen Briney.
And we're not wrong on this edition of the program. We'll be talking more about the week that was and Kamala's coconut mania overtaking the 2024 race, as well as the irradiation of J.D. Vance and the state of the weird for the GOP, which is now on the defense. Did we have a nice week where we didn't have to do a show on a Wednesday as all of the news decided to pile up on top of us?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly needed that time because I was trying to watch all 3 of the Trump assassination attempt hearings and get an episode out. So like I was actually working quite hard, and had we done the episode, I don't think I could have done it as fast as I did. But yeah, I mean, a lot happened. In fact, my favorite thing about this whole Biden dropping out part is that he dropped out before our live episode aired. So I won the bet before most people even heard that the bet happened. That was my favorite part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is that whole week I had a grand time because I'd go out with friends. We'd all be discussing it. And then I would check my phone and go, you guys, he's back in. And everybody would be like, what? And it'd be like, yeah, Biden said he's not dropping out. And then like a few minutes later, be like, now he says he's running as co-president with Kamala. And like just fucking with people.
Yeah. I don't like how you're getting mileage on the stake bet thing when you just lost a stake bet.
Okay.
And you have to pay
be
up
very
before
clear on
you
this.
start.
I'm going to.
When?
I don't know. We need to pick a date, but I told you that I would.
Tomorrow night.
No,
Why not tomorrow night? Why not tomorrow night? Because you owe me a steak.
I have plans tomorrow.
What are they?
I don't want to talk about it.
I very much. You have a weird fucking look on your face right now. What are you doing? Are you at a swingers club? What is happening?
No, but
Did they serve steak there?
Yeah.
Because we could just show up there.
Yeah.
no.
Scientologist now?
We'll do Fogo de Chao. I just think that we need to prepare ourselves for Fogo de Chao. It's a lot of food. But I'm gonna pay up my bet.
I don't like how you are both weaseling out of this and taking credit. Because I got beat the fuck up. You put out a Congressional Dish episode immediately saying, I just want a steak from Justin Young. So all I have is people. Number one, you haven't because, well, actually, no, I think technically you have because I think they did the voice roll call or the virtual roll call today, or they're going to do it tomorrow.
I thought they were doing it like August 7th or something.
Okay.
I don't think it's this
when
early.
that happens. That happens, you will.
But I
have
don't
won a
know why
steak.
you keep accusing me of welching on this bet. I'm going to give you the steak we just.
When you just dodged.
I'm not dodging shit. I keep saying like let's
steak
schedule it. I'm
dodger.
not dodging anything.
Thursday, she's going to be at that Scientology swingers party.
Jen Briney says she's not dodging steaks, but look at the facts. We're going to play this clip.
I'm not.
But everyone's
Keep
in
trying
agreement.
to make this about me, fucko. You were wrong on stage.
You were wrong. You were actually wrong.
But I was wrong a long time ago. You were wrong in the last episode. That's why we're focusing on it, because it was so fucking embarrassing for you. You shook my hand, and then before anyone even heard it.
Before anyone, except for the Milwaukee crowd.
Yeah, they knew.
Our Milwaukee faithful. By the way, thank you to everybody who came out to that show.
That was so fun.
We do have details on our Chicago show. Ticket information will be in the offing, but we can tell you right now that Sunday, August 18th at 7 p.m. at the Greenhouse Theater Center, we will be live for our DNC enriched Chicago live show. Andrew Heaton, Jen Briney, for absolute sure. I am listed, card subject to change, but there will, no matter what, it's either going to be a 4-person panel or a 3-person panel, an unannounced special guest, and we will announce the special guest when I see how tickets sell without him.
Fair enough.
We will wait to see if we sell really, really well. Maybe we'll just keep it a secret. If we need to goose it, then we'll announce they them.
We could do it like the mask. We could do it like the Masked Singer.
We don't know.
Where he's like a masked pundit, and then at the end he reveals himself, like at the very end of the entire live show.
That'd be great.
Or she, or they,
or Z.
I liked Z and Zem. It made
Z,
a lot
Zem.
of sense to me because the plural is just so hard for my brain to handle. Where I'm talking about a singular person and using they and them. Where Z and Zem, like when someone first introduced themselves and said, "Oh, my pronouns are Z and Zem," I'm like, awesome. Like that
I
works.
have no problem with neo pronouns as long as they come with neo patience for me to fuck them up a few times.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like I'm not great with foreign names, let alone remembering new pronouns. So like I'm down to clown, but just give me a little runway here.
yeah.
All right. So on July 19th, the three of us sat down in Milwaukee and did a live show. I shook Jen's hand, saying that Joe Biden would be the nominee at the Chicago convention. On July 21st, Joe Biden announced via Twitter that he would not seek the Democratic nomination for president, despite already gathering the delegates to do so. In another tweet,
it sounds like a boat, doesn't it?
Something weird is happening.
No, it sounds like a pontoon boat. It's probably not because it's a street,
yeah,
Street sweeper.
but it does
I
sound
think
like
it's
a
just
boat.
a street sweeper.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a boat.
On July 21st, Joe Biden announced via Twitter that he would not seek the Democratic nomination for president, despite already gathering the delegates to do so. In another tweet, he endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris. On July 23rd, Kamala Harris announced that she'd secured enough of the now unbound delegates of the DNC to secure the nomination via a digital roll call in early August. And since then, Kamala has raised over $200 million and racked up hundreds of thousands of volunteer commitments. Polling has shown up until we are recording right now on July 31st at 11:24 a.m. in Central Time that the race has closed compared to the basement of where Biden was, although we are still waiting to see exactly how much it is competitive. And so I ask you, Andrew Heaton, Biden dropping, Kamala locking, where do we want to start?
The fun part of this for me was that 3 weeks ago, the debate within Democratic circles was, should Biden drop out or not? And half the people were like, look, Biden can't drop out because if he did, we'd have to go with Kamala.
Yeah.
And then about sometime between breakfast and brunch,
New firmware
that
uploaded.
completely flipped to, she is the Messiah we've been looking for. Muad'Dib. Muad'Dib is here. Muad'Dib. So it's completely flipped there. The enthusiasm seems to be real, and normally I would pawn this off as the honeymoon period, but we are so rapidly approaching the election. Very likely, the honeymoon period will last into the election at that point. After
the last month, you assume that this is going to last for more than
good.
more than 6
You know
days?
what? Is it possible? Like, I feel like the American attention span gets shorter and shorter.
We are less than 2 weeks away from saying, well, the election's over because Trump got shot in the face.
Yeah.
For the record.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. Remember that time that guy got shot?
Yep.
Yeah. I think she's probably got it, which I was sad about. I really wanted to have an open primary or an open convention, a brokered convention.
Yes.
I so badly wanted that, and it looks like it's now going to be completely remote, and it's just not going to happen. Which
Did you want that because we were going to be there and be
Yes.
chaos and awesome,
Well,
or did you want it for the country?
90% the former thing you said. 90% me wanting to enjoy the blood sport of it.
You guys are true journalists now.
Thank
this
you.
This is, by the way, the long nursed boner of every political journalist is to be there for a brokered convention because it is the thing that you read about only in history that you wish that you could be there for. But yeah,
So close.
so close.
The remaining 10%, though, I get that this is a weird, aberrant circumstance for a major party and that it is not potentially possible to have a full-on primary or proxy for it at this point in time. I get that, but there is a part of me that goes, a lot of noise was made over the last 3 years about the party of saving democracy, and it does strike me as slightly disingenuous to not have an actual democratic process at any point. So yeah, and like this, everybody seems to have moved on from this, but I'm like,
Smoky back room is back, baby.
yeah, and so
we've never been more back at the smoky back room. The party bosses, the donors, just getting together and giving these plebs what they actually want, not what they say they want, not their little. Oh, I need to vote. I need to. No. We're your betters. We'll give you. Look, you have Brad Summer now. You're so happy with Brad Summer.
wait, can I? President Obama has not endorsed Kamala at this time.
Yes.
Oh, he has. So everybody has now. There's nobody holding
him
out.
and,
Pelosi.
Michelle endorsed in a totally unscripted moment where Kamala got the call while having a lapel mic.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's what a coincidence there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I assume Hillary Clinton's also endorsed my
Yes.
my wildly popular, very very like yes, Heaton, smart idea.
You got death threats in our comments for putting that evil into the world. People were like viscerally mad that you would even suggest.
You know what?
it.
I thought it was a smart play for the Democrats. I'm kind of surprised, and I do think like Hillary Clinton's been going to sleep looking at electoral maps on her ceiling, like a prisoner looking at the pictures of the guy that put her away for the last 8 years. So I'm kind of surprised it went down that easy, and there wasn't more blood sport.
Well, I mean, I think that the Democrats were tired of punching themselves in the face, and given the opportunity to not punch themselves in the face, they said, "Why don't we skip the part where we punch ourselves in the face more and just settle on this person that was probably going to win the face punching contest?" Jen,
I mean, so on the one hand, I hated the matchup of Trump versus Biden so much that I am excited that there's someone else in this. I've never understood the hate that anyone has for Kamala Harris, and I think it's not all that surprising to find that it's not all that real. So in a way, it's just like, okay.
on the left or on
Yeah.
the right?
Well, on the right, they hate anyone that's not them. So
Sure.
that's not surprising at all. Because she was a California senator and my mom listens to a lot of conservative talk radio. So I've heard all the stuff that like they're bringing out all the greatest hits from California that I just don't think ever really landed. And they're not landing now either. So
That she was a overzealous prosecutor that was like really going after the drug war and shit. Like a lot of her California track record
now she's steering into that because now she's
which
the prosecutor and the
makes
cop.
total sense. But
well,
I,
she's
like,
also running for chief law enforcement officer in the country. So her being a cop, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing
Yeah.
for this particular
I'm
job.
just saying, if
it's
you're
different than the
if
Senate.
you're conservative in
It also
California,
was not how she ran for it the last time she ran for this office.
But you also have to remember that was 2020. That was during the George Floyd protests. Like being a
Pre-George
cop was a
Floyd.
completely
Pre-George
different.
Floyd. It was 2019. She never made it to 2020.
Really?
Yeah.
she dropped out before
She flamed
Iowa.
out.
Yeah.
But still, like I think that
In fact, everything that is happening now happened then. She had a gigantic rollout. She was by far the number one. She had a huge enthusiasm. 12,000 people in Frankagawa Plaza in Oakland. Huge fundraising. And then the wheels fell off almost immediately. Now, whether or not that's going to happen again, we'll see.
Different time. This is a different time, a different situation. And so but when I look at like, okay, what's the future looking like? I'm happy that it's not Trump or Biden looking like
And
the
I think
most
that is
likely.
palpable.
That is palpable, and I'm
Yeah.
feeling that. That's fine. But I am deeply disturbed by the way the Democratic Party just operates. And this started in 2016 and 2020, the way they just made it impossible for Bernie to win within their structure. And so I hope that America, while we might be excited about having another option, is taking some notes on how the Democratic Party actually functions. That they're actually not all that into democracy in their private club. And the same, I mean, the Republicans are a private club too. I just hope that our country is getting a lesson in our democracy. We only get to choose out of the two that these private clubs are choosing for us. And no example in my lifetime is going to show that more than this, that they are choosing our candidates, that we're not really.
They have been, massively in favor of expanding ballot access to third parties across the country. Wait, no, the opposite of that fucking thing.
Okay.
We have one more party than North Korea. Congratulations, America.
Yeah,
We're outdoing North Korea by one.
There is a political science phrasing of whether or not the voters decide or the parties decide. And that's like when you're in a primary system, that is part of where we sort of do the calculus. It used to be in a convention world that the party decided that at a certain point you would have enthusiasm, but essentially that was just a resume. So the party bosses could sit back and say, no, we think this person either for reasons good or ill, are going to be the standard bearer of our party. The Republicans have, and you can decide whether or not it's good or bad, but they have stuck to a voter deciding system because nobody in the upper echelon of the party or the mechanisms of the Republican Party wanted Donald Trump. They wanted him as sitting president. Many of them didn't want him this time. They ran people against him. Donald Trump heat raid all of them with little effort and moved on. The Democrats, the party has decided, as you pointed out, 3 cycles in a row, and it's happened later in the cycles each time. Obama told Biden not to run in 2016.
And he obeyed.
And Biden, knowing that he would have been hobbled if he was the vice president, running without his boss's blessing, decided that he wasn't going to do it. Then, Hillary is protected by the DNC to the point where the leaked emails become
other than the
problem.
superdelegates and the collusion. How did the Democratic Party assist Hillary
they also
Clinton?
allowed her campaign to control the money.
Okay, other than the money, the collusion, and the superdelegates, how did they put their thumbs on the scales?
And then 2020, you have a more classic party deciding moment where Joe Biden is protected by all the centrist candidates dropping out and Elizabeth Warren staying in, which everybody forgets, but that denies Bernie Sanders what otherwise would have been almost assuredly enough delegates on Super Tuesday to make the convention something a little messier. Democrats abhor a mess. And so let's make sure that we cut off Bernie there. Now, that's less ugly because Bernie likes Biden and then COVID happens. So he was not going to continue to fight as deep into it as he did with Hillary because those two hated each other.
Well, and it was like the Trump reign and everyone just wanted to end it. So there was a bit more unity just being like, okay, how do we end it?
Yeah, I wonder if COVID hadn't happened, whether or not that would have been the same, but we'll never know.
Part of the problem with the Trump reign, the reason I voted for Joe Biden, despite his foreign policy is exactly the same as Hillary's, which is why I wouldn't vote for her in 2016. I don't like Joe Biden. He's been just as much a disaster in foreign policy as I predicted he would be. But in November of 2020, we were still in lockdown in Los Angeles. The virus wasn't being taken seriously by the Trump administration.
Sure, but I'm talking about the primaries.
I understand that, but the primaries took place in 2020 during COVID, and Trump's refusal.
The early part of it,
but to say that 2020 was the Trump reign, and his reaction to COVID was a part of.
I'm not denying that. I'm just focusing on the Democratic side for right now.
Okay.
But
I think that's why the Democrats had unity.
I think 2020 was actually a competitive primary. Like what you're describing is not party bosses facilitating things. It was the candidates having an alliance in 2020. You don't think?
No.
I mean, I think that was a competitive primary. There were multiple people running. They had an actual.
Yeah. No. I think, but it's at a juncture where if things had played out in every primary, let me put it this way. In every primary, there is a time where if an insurgent candidate is winning, the establishment wing tries to put together a stop blank movement. This is a cornerstone of the second season of Raise the Dead, where I compare Bernie Sanders to Barry Goldwater. And Barry Goldwater, they tried to put together a stop Goldwater movement, and it was all the same kind of people. It was Eisenhower, the former president. It was George Romney, because boy, those Romneys love getting really, really close to doing something and then not doing it. And a few other power players that whose names escape me, they were not able to put their egos aside to do something. In this case, Tom Steyer, Mayor Pete, Amy Klobuchar were all on the same page, reportedly organized by Obama, to drop out with promises of different things. And then Elizabeth Warren not dropping out. I don't know if it's a coincidence that a lot of Biden staffers were Elizabeth Warren staffers. I don't know if it's a coincidence that Biden has, he tilted more left in post 2020. And I think it was partially because of promises that were made to get him there. That is the party deciding, in my opinion. And nothing, either of those even compare to what happened here.
Yeah, this is just
Where this is just naked,
Yeah.
like no, we're gonna do surgery on ourselves, so they just rip their own eyeball out and put in a new younger eyeball, and
yeah. We don't need a WikiLeaks for this one.
No, this was
And
very
they're
clearly
still just doing the remote vote, right?
yes.
Which is another thing. What's the point of the convention if it's not to count the delegates? I don't
Jen,
understand.
I'm amazed to have. Hold on, Jen. Listen, okay, we all love democracy, which is rubber stamping what we've decided. We, the party, make the decision, and then the people all applaud and do what we told them to do, and that's the democratic process. As everybody stands up and claps like trained seals, and we say, "Look, the people support us." That's what democracy is.
I mean, is it literally now it's a pep rally? Is that what the DNC has become?
It's worse than a pep rally. Like what we saw in Milwaukee is how it normally goes, where they have already neutered this process. This process used to be an actual vote, right?
Yeah.
So it used to be
Like the Libertarian Convention.
Exactly. What we saw at the Libertarian Convention, where people that you actually don't know who's going to win.
Like the
You have
parliamentarian
factions.
actually has to know shit because
Yeah.
people are coming up going, I want to question or I want to appeal the decision of the chair, and they're like, you can't do that. We're 5 rounds or whatever that fucking thing is. Yeah.
But it used to be that past the primary system where you assigned enough delegates to actually win, it became a ceremonial thing. And so what we saw in Milwaukee was the ceremonial version of an actual process, an actual binding vote.
And the delegates loved it.
They love it, right? Because they get to do the thing, oh, great state. With the Democratic process, now they won't even do that.
No. So
Now it's-
literally, what's the point?
Of the convention,
why is
television
the
time.
entire
Television time.
Yeah, and so like
Yeah,
all
it's a
of-
TV show.
it's the amount of media and
Yeah.
like effort that they're going to put into this, and it serves no democratic purpose.
No.
Okay.
Well,
I thought maybe I'm missing
important.
something.
Oh, and also, by the way, we heard tonight that Joe Biden will speak at the DNC. He is getting the Amber Rose slot of night one.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
The sitting president of the United States. Thank you for your service, Joe.
Is Obama going to speak? Is he going to get the prime spot?
It would be shocking to me if he didn't come out at the end. That might be the move, is to end night one on a big high and have Obama come out and greet him, and then just
They're gonna
push him
be-
in a vat of acid.
They're going to be batting stars away from this because, like, I think we're going to get some good bands. Like, I'm really excited just for, like, star fucker reasons. Like, I'm excited just to see the celebrities walk around Media Row this time because I'd be shocked if we don't get an Oprah. Like, how does Oprah
In
not
Chicago.
come? Yes. Like, I think we're going to see some
Oh, I think you're right because like the Republican bench was Hulk Hogan,
Kid Rock.
and Lee Greenwood.
Russell Brand.
Russle and the My
Russell
Pillow
Brand
guy
was there,
There were,
yeah.
it was.
I think that was
is,
it.
Was Russell Brand like he was there as a journalist though? Was he not? He was.
He's into the fringe element of the right these days.
Okay, so
Yeah.
He's gone from screeching Fox News is poisoning America to screeching MSNBC is poisoning America.
as long as he's
He
still
feels like the
screeching.
left canceled
But he's-
him and he's bitter about it. And so when I was at the RNC, I saw him hanging out with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
He was on set with her, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're going to have way deeper bench. Like there was in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost, Tina Fey had a good line about like, if there'd just been one more celebrity endorsement, we could have picked
Yeah.
this one.
Oh, we're back to that. We're back to assuming that Charlie XCX was going to turn the path of democracy.
Can I say for a moment, celebrity bit fun? I was slightly, I don't know, there's something that chafes me slightly about something that was going on this week with the like race-based Zoom calls for Kamala. Like, have you all been paying attention to
Why is that weird?
The-
Why
like-
is white guys and white
Why-
women for Zoom? For
why-
Wait,
why-
what
why-
are you talking about?
So there was a very big, apparently very monetarily successful Zoom call of white women for Kamala, and then there was the following day,
White dudes.
Jeff Bridges and things. There was an ad
real?
hoc
Yes.
white dudes for Kamala, and I'm like, just
One of them raised I think,
Here-
1.2 million. The other raised 4 million.
here's my thing is
White's got money.
I feel very strongly that rules are equally applied. And if there were a white dudes for Trump Zoom call, that is all we would fucking hear about forever.
Why would you put that racist thought into the air? That's disgusting.
I mean, the mindset's literally, well, we're the good people, and they're the racist people.
Yeah.
So, like, it's fine for us to organize into racial cohorts because we're the good people, but they're racist.
Right.
You know, the guy married to an Indian woman with Indian children, he's racist. And so, like, that kind of bothers me.
Historically, though, when has racially segregated Democrats ever been a problem?
That's true. Good point. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Young listeners, these two are dripping with sarcasm.
Yes, but it chafed me a little bit of like I don't think that it would have been if the Republicans had did that, it would have been like their Hitler. It would have been their Hitler.
Of course, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when the Democrats do it
Because they're the good people.
Yes,
Yeah.
They're fighting for truth, justice, in the American way. Kamala was just hatched out of the ether. She has no record.
No.
She is both liberal and moderate. She is everything that you've ever wanted in one person.
That is the vibe.
She is
right
both
now.
young and old.
Mm-hmm.
She is
How old is she?
exactly
59.
58.
Oh, 58.
58 or 59.
Yeah.
I'd put that in the young-ish.
For politics,
category.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's younger than the 80-year-olds. So
Her
I don't know.
ex-boyfriend, Willie Broughton, is 90.
is he that old?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Still slinging it, apparently.
Wait, so Justin, can I kick this to you? Like, we haven't really got into policy with Kamala so much.
I mean, neither is she.
Yeah, I mean,
She wasn't a senator for very long.
no, and she didn't when she ran. There wasn't when she ran for president. There wasn't like a clear policy agenda or ideological agenda. Like there was.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
You think there was? Oh, I like
check the tape, dog.
Yeah.
Can you roll back
everything-
the tape for us? Because
Everything
was
she said into a microphone. So let's understand that again. Her first campaign was a disaster, and it was a disaster in the world that 2019 was, which on the Democratic side very much believed that Hillary Clinton lost in part because she was an unlikable moderate and that she did not embrace the insurgent progressive side of the party. And so everybody in that primary tilted probably more left than they would otherwise, with Joe Biden being an exception and also, as it turned out, the sole survivor by the very end. Kamala embraced Medicare for all. She embraced a mandatory gun buyback program. She said she would ban fracking, not only in an interview, but also while slow jamming the news with Jimmy Fallon. And, you know, then there's all the other sides of like decriminalizing border crossings, for example, and various other like quotes that now are going to haunt her. But policy-wise, she pretty much was on the left side of a very progressive primary. The problem is that in that primary, you had progressive voices that voters believed in more, specifically Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah.
And so she got crowded out. Her campaign totally fell apart, and it changed leadership 2 or 3 times and was leaking like a sieve by the end of it. So, everything she said in that very progressive primary has already resurfaced and is now at the center of like a tremendous ad buy from the Republicans and the Trump campaign to remind voters that she's put her name on a lot of progressive causes. She very quietly on Sunday said, "Oh yeah, no, 2019, that was a goof. That was just a little goof." Every once in a while, you're running, you say some things. We're for fracking. We're not for a mandatory gun buyback. We're not for abolishing private health insurance. She said all those things into a microphone in 4K in the past. She now is no longer for them. And, we're going to see how much any of that matters.
This is part of why I was pleased with Kamala Harris as a VP candidate, because I was very worried that Joe Biden was going to pick Elizabeth Warren, which I would not have enjoyed at all. And so when he selected Kamala Harris, I was like, oh, he went with a weather vane. Good. Like the upshot, the upshot to weather vanes, and I say this as an ideologue. The upshot to weather vanes is they do course correct very rapidly depending on what's going to benefit them democratically. So they're somewhat reflective of what they think the Democratic will is going to do, and that is my read on Kamala Harris. Is I don't think that she's an ideologue in the same way that like Ron Paul or Bernie Sanders are. I think she is very flexible and very pragmatic in terms of her evolving policy views, and I would put her kind of in the middle of the pack. I don't think she is a capital C communist progressive. I don't think any of that. I think she's much more towards the middle of the pack. What I'm curious about though is Justin, you being my personal expert on campaigns for all of this. Right now we are in the honeymoon week of the next 9-year election cycle that will be compressed into it. Does this last until the actual election? No. Like a lot of
this does not last.
A lot of what I'm hearing is that like the Trump campaign's freaking out because they had this entire grand strategy of just showing Biden falling down stairs ad nauseum. They can't do that anymore. Now they're the old guy, and a lot of the stuff that the Trump campaign's been waging can be turned against them. Yeah, because now the old guy rhetoric can be turned around. So is she an extremely competitive candidate? Like, where do you stand on this?
There's no doubt that they are on defense right now, and we're going to get into some of the incoming that they are taking specifically with J.D. Vance and whether or not that was a smart decision to pick him. But right now, we are seeing tremendous Democratic unity that I don't know lasts the rest of this week, considering some of the dialogue around who she might pick for her vice presidential selection. When you have the same people that were posting coconut memes and changing their avatars to lime green brat, calling your prospective vice president genocide Josh, you can understand that maybe the happy joy kumbaya moment that is existing right now might not be forever. Does that mean that she won't win? No. I think that this is a very competitive race at this point. The biggest questions are, at some point, is 2019 Kamala is she still in there? Or will the machine around her, a campaign that just ran one candidate into the ground, has this campaign learned enough that they need to protect her and they're not going to let her say something incredibly stupid into a microphone, which she is wont to do? And can she manage a campaign if it looks like she's winning? When she all of a sudden starts smelling the Oval Office and understanding that she's going to be in history books forever as the first woman president, does that bring out some of the instincts that made her somebody that had her office turn over 90% when she was in the Senate? Reporting came out today that when she was Attorney General, she instructed her staff to rise to their feet and say, "Good morning, General," every time she walked in the morning.
Wait, General specifically?
General.
Nice. Nice.
This from a Democratic super donor whose kid went to intern, and the parent was so upset about it, he wrote a letter in his local city of 300 newspaper because he was so mad at Kamala Harris. So we don't know. I mean, that's what we have no idea about. We know that the Democratic electorate is thrilled to not have to defend an 81-year-old man. They are thrilled to get rid of the cognitive dissonance of saying, "I'd vote for a corpse instead of Trump." Like, that felt icky. I think that the Democratic electorate is thrilled to not have to ever say that again. They would rather say, "I don't care. She's Kamala. She's young. Fine. Let's roll the dice." Does it last? Who knows? I think the only thing that I am comfortable saying right now is what I've said from the very beginning, which is it's going to be close. The only time I felt that it wasn't going to be close was when Joe Biden was actively demoralizing his own party. As for the Trump campaign, we're going to find out what happens when they get punched. They haven't really gotten punched so far.
And that's something Kamala's good at. Watching her in the hearings, she is smart, she is quick, she's a bitch. And I think we need that in this. We do. She's going to hit back at him and she's going to be clever about it. She's pretty funny too. And she's if she goes up against an executive or something and they try and get around her with weasel words, she's on it, man. So I'm excited for the debates that Trump seems to be chickening out of. I think he'll eventually.
That's not a thing.
I think he'll eventually debate. I hope so.
He's going. All they wanted to do with that was they wanted to keep in the news cycle that the Democrats did this switcheroo. Because when they were pressed to schedule the vice presidential debates, they put out a press release saying, we're not going to schedule J.D. Vance for vice presidential debates because it would be unfair to J.B. Pritzker, Josh Shapiro, or Mark Kelly, or whoever's going to be the vice president. That turned out to be true, right? And so they're saying, we'll figure it out. They're going to debate.
But like Trump has had to debate Hillary and Biden. I think Kamala is a different game. I think it's going to
check
be
the
fun
tape
to
on
watch.
Kamala. She's not great in debates. At least she has not been. She got her shit kicked in by Tulsi Gabbard. She, faded. The more people saw her on a debate stage in 2019, the worse she did.
Yeah, but this is a debate against Trump.
Yeah.
Against a liar. Like, she's not just going to sit there and take it. I'm excited to see how she does, just because like she was so good in the hearings. She was one of the people that when it was her turn to ask questions, I sat up and listened. She was very good in the hearings.
It was part of the reason why she had the kind of momentum going into 2019.
Yeah.
Was that she was, in the Trump ecosystem of those hearings. She was a star.
Yeah, she's great. So I think it'll be exciting to watch.
Yeah. Who knows? The one thing that I'm pretty sure of now is that I don't think, not only does policy not matter, we're like far beyond policy not mattering. I don't think issues matter at all, because Kamala's going to say Donald Trump is for Project 2025, banning abortion federally, banning IVF, and banning birth control, for which the head of Project 2025 got fired yesterday, and the Trump campaign put out a celebratory press conference.
Why did they fire him? Shouldn't that have been like a great fundraising thing? We've talked about this previously.
It apparently was turning in a way that the Heritage Foundation didn't like in terms of their relationship with the Trump campaign. The Trump campaign felt it was a liability.
Okay.
And so they fired the dude. Meanwhile, Trump has said he's not going to ban abortion nationwide, and he's not for IVF, and he's banning IVF, and he's not for banning birth control. And the answer to all of that on the Democratic side is, well, you can't trust him. He's a liar. Now, meanwhile, Kamala Harris has said in the past, I'm for a mandatory gun buyback. I'm for banning private insurance. I'm for banning fracking once and for all. And now she says, no, I'm not for that. Is that going to stop Donald Trump from saying it? No, he's going to say it every time he gets up on stage. And when people say, well, she's not for it now, they're going to say, yeah, but you can't believe her. She's a liar. She just totally changed her position in 5 seconds. So we're beyond issues. Like, we don't even have a common thread on what people believe anymore. This is going to be entirely on vibes.
Yeah.
It is going to be entirely on whether or not you think Kamala is a bubblehead who's going to steer us into World War III and wreck the economy even further. Or if Donald Trump's an authoritarian that's going to put us all in camps. Like, that's the election now.
It's the vibes election.
Weirdly,
it's been a pleasure serving with you both. Goodbye.
Yeah, weirdly, it's
I have no input now.
I thought this was going to be a less cynical election if Biden was out. I'm kind of on the side that it's going to be more cynical. It's going to be even deeper, darker cynicism of not even engaging in where either of them say they are.
I mean, it's already gross with the Republicans, multiple Republicans in Congress at least, coming out and saying that she's nothing but a DEI candidate, which I just find repulsive. It's all about identity, and because, I mean, it goes both ways, right? They're saying that she didn't actually earn any of her positions, and there is a lot of people excited about a first, Black woman, Indian, all of the things. So, no, I think you're absolutely right. It's not about policy, and I think it's sad. And it's also all about the presidency. Once again, we're not talking about all the people running for Congress, because this is sucking up all the air in the room. It remains a depressing election.
I'm gonna offer a concurring opinion on the DEI thing. I do think she was a DEI hire for Veep, but in the sense that all vice presidents are. Mike Pence was
and Joe Biden specifically said he was going to choose a woman and probably a Black woman.
Right.
That was what he
still
said.
Qualified.
Yeah,
what I'm saying
it's
is
not like he picked her out of.
If I can finish,
he did cite her as an example of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sorry.
What I'm saying is that the vice presidential candidate tends to be an identity pick, and the same was true with Mike Pence. Mike Pence was selected because he was an evangelical, not because he was a particularly good governor. She was selected for the same reasons. This has nothing to do with her Senate record.
She was also selected because she was the Attorney General of California, a U.S. Senator. Like, she wasn't just selected for all of these positions because she's a Black with a vagina. Like, she earned these positions regardless of her race.
Black
and so to
Indian
just,
with a vagina.
I think that I'm not saying you're doing this, Andrew, but like there's a dismissiveness to calling her a DEI candidate.
Sure.
And that's what's offensive about it.
None of her, yes, the idea that there is no competency whatsoever, that it's purely a quota system. I agree. I do think though that it is going to be somewhat difficult to resolve the cognitive dissonance of there's like the DEI thing's completely wrong, but also it's amazing that we're going to elect a black woman Asian president to the president. Then it's saying the DEI thing's completely unfounded and running an identity-based campaign. If that's how that goes, I think they're contravened to one another.
I mean, I think DEI for some people has this negative connotation where diversity, equity, inclusion are good things. So the fact that she has gotten to the point where she can be the president of the United States, that's an objectively good thing. My problem is that these Republican congressmen are saying this as if it's an insult, as if she's not qualified and she's only getting this because of the color of her skin, and not the fact that like we have now progressed as a society to the point that a black woman has made it this far, where 100 years ago, I mean, probably not possible. So I think it is
I can
something
definitively
to
say
celebrate.
100 years ago it would have been impossible for a black woman to run as president. In 1924, yes, I think that is a fair statement to make.
So I mean, it is something to celebrate, but it's also offensive when it's used as an insult.
Sure.
To dismiss her
I guess all I'm saying is like I think that if they run an identity-based campaign, if we've got to get behind her because she's a woman, we have to put a woman in the White House, like we've got to have somebody of color, that is contravened to we only want to pay attention to competency, policy, things like that. So I think that you can't like simultaneously 100% go into both of those things. Yeah. And my point with the DEI thing was just like, look, all vice presidential candidates are selected for identity. That's why I brought up Pence, like same scenario.
No, I don't think you're wrong in any way. And I don't think that you're using it in the way that like Tim Burchett is using it, you know, like the dismissive way. I don't think that that's what you're doing, but there are people that are doing it.
I'm very dismissive of most people in Congress, but it has nothing to do with their race or identity. It's because I think they're fucking morons.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay. Any final thoughts here on the race as it stands right now? Have you fallen out of a coconut tree, Jen?
Not yet.
Not yet. You're still firmly in the coconut tree.
No, I'm still
yet to
like
fall.
right now. Jill Stein is still the person that represents my views the best, especially on foreign policy. Now, what I will say is that Kamala has at least expressed empathy for the Palestinians, which has not been done by Trump, Biden, or RFK Jr., by the way. So Joe Biden is still someone that I identify with the best. Jill Stein, sorry.
Dr. Joe Biden.
Yeah, Jill Stein is someone I still like the best, but I'm going to give Kamala a chance because I am aware that it's probably one of the Democrats or Republicans that becomes the presidential nominee. And if she doesn't run too far away from her 2019 things, like you listed those things as bad things, I absolutely want Medicare for all. I don't want a private insurance-based healthcare system. I think it's bankrupting people and killing people. I am terrified of people around me everywhere I go in America having guns. And I think I would like to have a limit on that. So it's like if she doesn't run too far away from the stuff that she promised us in 2019, she could actually earn my vote. So
Well, she has already run away.
But not like, I don't know. I'm saying that I'm willing to give her a chance.
I mean, she did it again, this is part of like her being everything to everyone, is that like she has to do it publicly so she can say that she has always done it. But her team came out and said specifically, she's not for Medicare for all. She is not for a mandatory gun buyback, and she is not for banning fracking.
Okay, she's not for Medicare for all. Is she for a public option? Like, this is what I'm saying. I'm willing to hear her out. And I'm a wonk like this. I know that a lot of these things have nothing to do with the presidency. I'm aware that Congress has to do a lot of this shit.
Yeah.
So I'm
her entire abortion platform.
Yep.
Can I give you a very quick synopsis?
Wait, no, hold on. Just say, like, when it comes to when I'm picking the president of the United States, that is the commander in chief. Like, from the number one for me is what are you going to do in foreign policy? That is the most important thing. If you're promising me something that only Congress can do, I'm not going to say that's going to be what's going to determine my vote. And right now, when it comes on foreign policy, we don't know much. And so I'm open to the idea of voting for her, where I was not open to voting for Biden or Trump. I'm open to voting for her, but right now I'm still leaning Jill Stein.
I like that
Not
perspective.
very proud of you.
Whatever.
I very much like the perspective of voting based on foreign policy. I think, like, goddamn, the presidential election becomes this like annual every 4 years we have this like election of who's the spirit animal for America, which is what most dipshits are voting on. Is like, who should be national chaplain? Fuck off. Like the foreign policy is really the most salient thing. My quick guess, until somebody says otherwise, is I think that she will be very much a part of the Anthony Blinken crowd unless she starts rapidly deviating.
She has signaled that the current head of the State Department and Department of Defense would not be retained. Whether or not that is true, who knows?
Would love to hear her articulate her foreign policy.
I would
position.
very much love for Anthony Blinken to be pushed into a cement,
volcano,
just a cement bed where he can't move his feet. I don't need for him to be. I just need for him to be restrained and replaced, because I don't think that the record of this State Department has stewarded the world to a particularly peaceful place.
But like my quick TLDR on Kamala Harris, this was my assessment of her back in 2020, is I think too long didn't read. This is a new phrase that I've learned. Listeners, did you see Heaton explaining a pop thing to Jen? Like breakdancing.
It's an Olympic sport.
My read on her is I think if you're from the progressive wing, that my read on Kamala Harris is that she is reliably progressive unless it gets in her way. So if all things are going her direction and it is electorally viable, she's going to govern as a progressive, but she will drop it the second it makes it any type of ambition curtailed. So Bernie Sanders, to his credit, I think will like do the progressive thing, even if it doesn't win him the election. Kamala's not going to do that. But if things are going her way and she can convince people, I think you could trust that she would go progressive.
I think that she's a San Francisco liberal. Yeah. I think that's her core, and
I didn't see that in the Senate though. I didn't see her champion for those causes the way that Bernie and Elizabeth Warren were.
I didn't say like a true blue progressive. I said a San Francisco liberal. So virtue signal until it gets in the way of your career.
Okay, yeah.
I'll add one quick thing because I'm seeing radically different assessments of her Senate career. Jen, I defer to you on this because you're watching this and you are my personal expert on all things going on in Congress. I'm hearing from conservatives that she had the most progressive track record in the Senate. And what I would caution people when they hear those kind of things to do is check the metrics by which they're looking at that. This was a trick that I became aware of when I was working in the House, where, as you can back me up on this, you're constantly voting on all sorts of shit, like should we break for lunch? And the way that a lot of organizations tabulate these votes are, if the speaker did it, you're voting with the party. So if Nancy Pelosi's Speaker of the House and she says we're going to break for lunch, all in favor, what happens? All the Democrats go, yes, let's break for lunch. This is a fairly obvious thing. All the Republicans who have metrics that they need to hit, they vote no. Or they vote abstain.
That's where you see, like, they voted against Nancy Pelosi
exactly.
90% of the time.
Or like, Dan Boren, my old boss, voted with Nancy Pelosi 80% of the time. It's like, right, on fucking, like, should we...
post offices.
Yeah, post it. Like you need to look at the actual weighted things. Like, you have to weight these things. So, when people start trotting out that metric...
Save that shit for the off year. This is my time now, where only horse shit reigns. Yes! No policy, no ideas, just mean words. Yeah, that's it. How do you feel about him? Would you have a beer with him? Welcome to hell.
All I'll say about her Senate record is if the Republicans are your source on Kamala's record, get another source, because they're just not. They're disingenuous. They're not.
Well, they're running against her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're saying like, well, the Republican said she did like you need to fact check.
I mean, I would also say that you should say that with Trump too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like if the Democrats are telling you something about Trump, I mean, we're seeing it right now with like, he's gonna be a dictator. Like I had another panicked tweet this morning. There's a lot of bullshittery on both sides. So it's like, what you'd want to do is check for yourself. There is a whole voting record that's available to you in public. So it's like, you don't have to trust the opposition party to tell you about the person that they're probably lying about.
I agree with all of that. Yeah, look at look at the record and see what the bills are that you care about, and look at that.
I mean, like weirdly, if you actually look at, and again, but you can't trust Trump because he's a liar, blah blah blah, right? I don't particularly find Donald Trump to be a pro-life ideologue. I don't look at Donald Trump and see a Gary Bauer.
Bet my house he's paid for an abortion at some point.
Yes.
I agree.
I don't have a house. I would steal one.
And I got a
and
great
bet it.
deal on it. I got a great deal, a deal that you've never seen.
Golden wire hanger.
But I think he would sign it.
Well, hold on. He has said he is not for a national abortion ban. He has said he is for protecting IVF. He has said he is for enshrining the right for women to have birth control. He has stripped out of the platform pro-life language. No Republican nominee in my lifetime has ever given a shit about that at all. Like, by the metrics.
He picked JD Vance, though.
And he did put those Supreme Court justices
Yeah.
on to overturn Roe v. Wade. Like, I can
then
understand
they
why
did
people
it.
freak out about reproductive things, given that he's the most pro-life.
Okay. I'm saying what he has done up till now, and if we are judging by it, no candidate has done that at this point, right? On the
Done
Republican ticket, has stripped pro-life stuff out of the platform and said that he was not for a federal abortion ban. Every Republican president in my lifetime has done both of those things.
Those are all words, though. Like,
Okay,
if you list
yes,
his
no,
actions,
you can say he's lying, and the Republicans are going to say that Kamala
he's real
is,
good at lying.
That Kamala is lying. That Kamala's, like Heaton said, a weather vane, and that the second that no matter what moderate thing that she says, she is going to get into office, and she is absolutely going to do every progressive thing that would scare a swing voter. Like come do your own math. I'm not here to tell you what the fuck to do. I'm just telling you where I see things.
I just think that you have to look at, like, okay, if you're concerned about abortion, which side do you think is going to limit it, and which side do you think is going to allow it? And it's like pretty fucking clear.
But also, it's like
Which one's
we're
which?
not in a situation where either is going to fucking happen. Especially
I don't know about
when,
that.
when Kamala Harris is saying her big way to enshrine abortion protection is to say, I'll sign a bill if it comes to me. Congratulations. Wait for your 60 Democratic votes at some point in the next 30 years. You're not going to get them in the next 8 years.
But if there were a scenario in which there is this red wave that we were predicting 3 weeks ago, red wave, they get the 60 vote majority in the Senate, because as you've said, the Senate is very favorable to Republicans this year.
Not that favorable.
They get the House, whatever. But if you have a scenario where you have the Republicans with real control, and then Donald Trump, the bullet actually hits, and then you have JD Vance as president, like, these aren't crazy scenarios in which something like this could happen.
Sure.
If you vote for Democrats, it won't happen. So
I'm not
it's
saying,
not an unreasonable.
Again, I'm not saying it's unreasonable. I'm just saying that this, on the Republican side, that has never happened in my lifetime. That's all I'm saying.
that he said words, like that he took it out of the platform. Like, that's,
Yeah, both things, both positions. I mean, again, this is all negatable. This is why ideas are not even going to be a part of this election, because we're not even going to have a conversation about
But
it.
when it comes to abortion, it is going to be a part of this election. Kamala's going to make sure of it.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So,
no, I know, but
that's
we're not
when-
even going to have a conversation that includes what either people are saying. Like, we are going to have a conversation that is entirely siloed on either side, and I love it. I love it because it makes me money. That's all I fucking care about.
He's sick.
Cynical money vacuum. All the rest of you people, if you're not, I would prefer it if we had a conversation, but we're not going to.
No, you don't.
We're not
You
going to.
love this shit.
I make more money when we don't. I play both sides, so I win either way. Patreon.com/whereNotWrong is where you need to go if you want to give us money. This week, we'll be talking about the Southwest Airlines decision to ditch their famous cattle call boarding system in favor of assigned seats. Southwest superfan Jen Briney shaking her head in disgust.
Save it for the Patreon.
Oh, yeah, you got to pay, bub. That's what you got to do if you want to get that. Coax him over the paywall. Let's talk about JD Vance. Welcome to the big leagues, Jance Dance Vance. The newly minted GOP vice presidential nominee has been irradiated by the newly emboldened Democratic Party, and the result is one word: weird. Twitter has run wild with rumors that Vance admitted to fucking his couch in his best-selling autobiography, Hillbilly Elegy, which is untrue, but who cares? Also, that he searched for and then shared a viral clip of a woman getting humped by a dolphin and liking it. That's true. And finally, A 2021 Tucker Carlson clip that unearthed where JD states that the Democratic Party is run by quote-unquote childless cat ladies, citing Kamala Harris, AOC, and Pete Buttigieg. He has since responded to that clip saying it was a sarcastic comment, and his point was that the Democratic Party has become anti-child and anti-family. But all this brouhaha has been summed up by possible Democratic VP nominee Governor Tim Walz with the now iconic phrase, JD Vance is weird. Jen, is weird a fair or effective way to brand your opponent in this election?
So I've been thinking about this a lot more than is probably healthy, because I think weird is a really interesting word, and there's two different connotations for it.
Yeah.
I think most everyone is weird, right? Like, I know I'm weird. My family tells me I'm weird all the time. And I know you two, who I adore, you're both weird.
Nope.
But
I am the bell curve. I am frighteningly normal.
well, so that's the thing, right? I
am
think
the mantra
about
man.
I think about weird, and when I say that with so much love, it's because the people who I think are the coolest are the weirdest, and they just lean into their weird. So like this morning, for instance, I was watching the women's beach volleyball, Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang, and Snoop Dogg's a big fan of them. So he's out there being Snoop, this ex-gangster, and he's like cheering on these girls. He has one of their faces on his jacket, and then he opens the jacket and has the other girl's face on his jacket, and he's out there with a teeny tiny fan, like fanning himself in between plays. This guy's fucking weird, and we love him. And the reason that we love him is he's all love. He just embraces whatever he enjoys. So it's like, instead of him being like Mr. Gangster and he meets Martha Stewart and like tries to be like cool and mean to her, they become best friends. It's just like love. And
Only one of them went to prison.
there you go, which is also kind of crazy. But yeah, so I think that people that embrace their weird become cool, and Austin embraces its weird, and it's cool. So I think that's one way that you can look at weird, and it's not an insult. But then I look at the other kind of weird, and I remember, like, the example that always comes to my head when I think of bad weird is the Columbine kids. They're trench coat mafia people, where their brand of weird felt a little dangerous. It felt judgy. Like it was a weird vibe in a way that like you didn't quite feel safe around them. And that's the weird that I think that they're applying to JD Vance, and for good reason, because his breed of weird, I mean, you have to imagine that his comments about childless people, that we should feel inadequate. I feel personally attacked on that one.
You have a dog.
I have a dog, but like, it's not the first time I've gotten that vibe from people where it's like, because I haven't procreated, I'm like less than, and he thinks I should have fewer votes. There's a hatefulness to that. There's a judginess.
Yeah, Justin.
To it. But it's like, I think that when people say you're weird in a bad way, it's because you're a little bit dangerous. You're judging people in a way that could actually affect us. And when you have someone like JD Vance and Donald Trump that are looking to be the most powerful and are running in ways in which they're speaking about other people's choices in a way that are mean, like I think Donald Trump and JD Vance are both mean. And that's why I think this weird thing is not only landing on them, but they're taking offense to it, as they should, because it's not the cool weird. It's the, you're weird, and I really don't want you having any control over me, because you seem to want to wield it in ways that would determine my choices based on what you think.
Yeah. Weird is certainly less syllables than deplorable. That worked great.
Well, but there is a difference between the two, because Hillary Clinton was talking about the followers of Trump as deplorable, but to call JD Vance and Trump weird, they're weird. I mean, Trump is weird. It's like he's an anomaly in a lot of different ways, and I think it's weird in sinister ways. I think it's weird in like sociopathic ways. So, and same with JD Vance. I mean, this is a guy that, instead of having empathy for people because his mother had such a difficult time raising her children, not being able to empathize with people who choose not to have children, and instead, like, you know, literally demonize us in his comments. I think that's weird that he's gone so far in like, you must have children or you have less value type of way. So I think it's a dangerous weird. And as long as people who are using it are keeping it to the individuals who are actually being weird and not everyone who likes them for their own reasons. Like that's when we cross over into judgmentalness.
So you don't think that leaks through?
I mean, I haven't seen it leak through, but I'm also like, I'm applying it to JD Vance and Trump. And I'm also one of the one who's taking heat on the internet because I said that I went to the MAGA carnival and found them to be lovely human beings. And there are people that are not happy with me for saying that. They're saying like, now I'm a MAGA cultist.
I was curious. As soon I heard her recording that line from the other room as I was working on my episode, and I was like, I wonder what she's going to get more shit for, the Israeli-Palestine episode or her saying, I love MAGA.
Yeah. It hasn't been a lot, but it's definitely...
Good. All right. Well, we know.
Yeah. But I mean, tribalism is gross. We've talked about this a million times. And so I just think as long as you're not judging an entire half of the country...
I do think it leaks through.
Well, I mean, if people want to be personally offended because someone calls JD Vance weird, like, I don't know how you disconnect that. Like, I don't know how you get people to stop identifying themselves with the person they're voting for. Like, if you call Jill Stein weird, like, I'm not personally offended. If you call Biden old, I'm not like, hey. So, like, I don't know what to tell people that get offended if you insult their candidate.
Weirdos. You can tell them that.
I do think it's weird to identify that strongly with a politician. I think that is
Well, I think
weird.
it's more, it's that there's a classic archetype here of coastal elites sneering at people that they traditionally have disrespected and are doing it again. I think that's the risk. Now,
but Tim Walz's comments were specifically about JD Vance.
But this is
is
about a larger element, and that's what politics is. And I think that's why the Republicans are reacting the way that they're reacting, and we'll see exactly how it lands. Heaton?
I don't think it's a smart way of negating a candidate, but I think it's a very effective way of negating a candidate. We and probably pretty much everybody that listens to this program is weird in the sense that we are regularly thinking about
Speak for yourself.
and weighing policy and looking at ideology.
Yes.
I think that is not the norm. And I think we're like, even for us, we have to fight the impulses to some extent. So like, I'll give an example. Back in 2008, McCain versus Obama. Have I got that right? Yes.
Yeah.
The last election in which I liked both candidates. Like I remember when they secured it, I was in England at the time, and I was like, great! I really like both of these guys. I was also young, but I at the time and being much more molten in my political outlook at that time, where I was a Democrat, but I wasn't like a rock rib Democrat. I was kind of a moderate and a conservative Democrat, so I could go either way. And was trying to sit down and figure out whether I was going to vote for McCain or Obama, and I was looking at their like, well, okay, so Obama wants whatever he wanted before Obamacare. McCain wants to give checks to people. It was really difficult to assess these based on policy, particularly at the time where I didn't have all the mental scaffolding I have now. But I really just wanted to vote for Obama because he was cool. Mm-hmm. He was really cool. And read an article the following day where somebody went, I supported John McCain when he ran in 2001 or whatever, 2002. I liked him then, but Obama's the guy for me now. And I was like, great, thank you. I don't have to think. It was an intellectual, like, here's the pill you can take.
Permission structures, as
they
call it.
Permission structures, a great way of phrasing that. This is a button you can push that will make all of your cognitive dissonance go away.
Yes.
Like I was back in 2016, I was doing a regular thing with a comedian friend of mine. He was hosting a show. And he did not like Hillary Clinton because she was war hawkish and she was Wall Street and everything else that you can think of coming from the progressive side of things. He obviously didn't like Trump. And I was like, well, like a lot of the things you really care about, I think you would be fine with Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. You wouldn't agree with them on this, but like overall, the stuff you're really worried about. And you could see him starting to sweat of like, well, I can't not. And then he went, man, Johnson Weld sounds like the whitest name in the world. And you could just see like, done. Don't have to think about it anymore. So I think the JD Vance's weird thing is that kind of permissionless, or what do you call it? Permission structure of, look, do you have a feeling about this guy? That's it. Just say that. You're good now. You don't have to look at the policy.
Yeah.
I do. The more I read about him, the less I like him when I look at the policy stuff. Like, okay, let's look at it socially. I'm surprised this isn't getting hammered harder than it is. The dolphin thing was bullshit. He literally he
was searching for the clip, and then
okay.
We looked for the same one.
Yeah. The tweet he said is maybe the internet doesn't work or something like that. So it's kind of a cheeky way of condemning the clip. And also, like, if I were
maybe the internet was a mistake. Yeah.
Maybe the internet was, if I was like going to like search for, I'm going to make a tweet that somebody showed me the other day, dolphin and woman, like, it's not like it's unlikely he was online and went, I'm going to look for dolphins raping women. Like that one I'm going to give him a pass on. The childless Catwoman thing absolutely should offend people. Like that, like run with it. Yeah, and he's like, it was sarcastic. Yes, you were being bitchy and sarcastic, but you were still being mean-spirited. The things that I would add to that bother me are, granted, he's shooting from the hip and he's thinking out loud rather than making a specific policy proposal. But in The Intelligencer, he was talking about how he's really big on America needs to have more kids and that we need to be having more children. And he was just kind of thinking out loud and went, like maybe we could give kids the right to vote, but we give the votes to their parents. So people with more children get to vote. Now, this isn't a policy proposal, but him thinking out loud is like, it would be better if people that have more children get more political weight than people that don't have children. I think that's fucked up. I don't like that. I would like to have children, and I don't want Justin having more votes than me. So on the social side of that, he is a social conservative. The only thing that I'll give him is like he does seem to kind of go, look, I don't think gay marriage is real, but it's settled law. So he's sort of like, I'm not going to go after that. But and then on the economic side, and I think this is part of why the Democrats are leaning into the weird thing. His patron
is Peter Thiel, so I would assume he has a fairly evolved idea of but that issue.
On the economic side, I think this is part of why we're going into the weird thing rather than doing the policy stuff. He's in favor of a $25 minimum wage. That's more than Bernie Sanders has proposed. He wants protectionism. He thinks Lena Khan is doing a good job. He's anti-monopoly, anti-corporate. There are lots of things that I have a problem with economically on him that would put him more progressive than the Democrats, which is, I think, part of why we're leaning into this kind of Mean Girls world, because it would be harder.
They don't want to talk about that.
No, like
they don't want J.D. Vance to be to the left of where Kamala Harris is going to be.
I think the last thing you want is J.D. Vance going, why not $25 minimum wage, and Kamala Harris going, well, that would increase unemployment. You do not want to fight a vanguard defensive action on that. But overall, though, the point is, I think all of that would be fairly minimum. For the most part, people vote based on their feelings, and it'll be a lot more effective to have a lot of Hollywood celebrities coming out going, I don't like him, he seems like a weird guy, and everybody going, well, I want to be at the cool kids table. So I think it's very effective politics, but I wish it's not how politics worked.
I wonder whether or not it's effective politics, because I don't know who it turns on and turns off. I wrote on Substack that there is no normal anymore. We keep talking about normal voters, mainstream voters. They don't exist.
Yeah, we're all
weird.
Weird.
They don't exist. We are all in niches. Whether or not we are weird is up to everybody's own view of the world. But we live in silos. And if you believe I don't live in a silo, I live exactly in the mainstream where I did. No, you're in a fallout shelter that's still pretending it's the 50s. Like it is flavored like the mainstream was when you were a kid. And so that's where you are placated into believing that you are in the mainstream. Everybody is in cultural, you are zealots of a warlord. You just have different rules as to what that warlord is. And right now I see the JD Vance's weird stuff as very much going on top of the energy right now with the coconut memes and the Brat Summer and that kind of stuff. It's speaking very much to the converted. That being said, if it advances the case that the Trump-Vance ticket is especially dangerous on abortion, that is good for the Democratic ticket, because that at least accentuates what is right now the only of the top 4 issues that Americans care about the most that they have an advantage on. And Joe Biden was losing that advantage against Donald Trump. Kamala Harris should obviously be able to press that harder. If this hits the gas on that, good for them. They're going to be able to strip off voters that obviously on one hand would already vote for them, would never vote for Donald Trump, let alone whoever, a barking dog was his vice president. But now that there's another reason, okay, if you can strip off a few people that are single issue abortion voters but hate the Democratic Party, that's good for you. Where I think you have to be worried is if it does bleed into you are making a value judgment on a person, because the person that JD Vance is, that he was selected on that ticket for is to talk to Rust Belt voters in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And so if you do have a deplorable situation on your hands, and specifically the avatar that you lit on fire was somebody that is very much like those voters in those states that you need to win, then you could be like the weasels in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, but they're not doing the deplorable thing, though. They're going with a couch fucker angle of like, hey, we're going to create this like kind of funny bullshit thing, but like, doesn't he kind of look like that? So like, they're not leaning into like the hillbilly element. They're leaning into this
it was about his book, that he fucked the couch in his book.
But
and
the
that
thing is, he's not a hillbilly. Like, he's a guy who went to Yale, who constantly wears suits and is in the Senate. So I think this whole, like, yeah, he has the book Hillbilly Elegy, but that is not really how people see him. It's never how I've seen him. And I didn't even know about his book until he became vice president. So when you look at someone who's kind of blue collar, you're kind of thinking like a John Fetterman who's walking around in sweatshirts all the time. Like, he doesn't present as a hillbilly. So if I don't think
not
that
a hillbilly, he is a Rust Belt dad. That is what he wants to present as.
And I don't think he's doing a good job as presenting of that. I think he presents very well.
I don't know if you're the target demo.
Well, I pay more attention than most people to politics, and I see the guy as someone who's buddied up to billionaires, is a Yalie, and is currently in the Senate. And I think people are going to see him as that and not necessarily be like, oh, when they call that guy weird, they're talking about me as I'm working in a factory.
Okay.
I don't know. He's a Yalie, for Christ's sake.
You might be right.
I'm surprised that they haven't gone more with the opportunist angle. Like weird, I think, is useful, and that weird means whatever you want it to. Like Jen made an excellent point that like the latitude on the definition of weird is very, very high. But like weird, it rather than pinpointing it, it's just, is there anything that bothers you about him? You're right about that. This is confirmation. But you can all have very different interpretations of what's weird about him. I'm like, again, the more policy stuff I read, I'm like, no, not for me. The opposite of Heaton is a social conservative that wants a robust government involved in the economy. That's the opposite of me. And I think J.D. Vance is actually pretty close to that. So I'm not thrilled with him. I'm kind of surprised there's not more, I refrain. I was going to make some character assessments. I'm going to hold off on that. I will say, having read a bit of Hillbilly Elegy, he didn't just flip on Trump. He flipped on his whole outlook on the Rust Belt phenomenon. I haven't finished the book yet, so maybe I'm gonna have to eat my words here. But the book, to me, seems to be an explanation to the coasts on why hillbillies are poor, and part of it is that they have a culture of drugs and poverty. And they don't work hard. First chapter of the book, he talks about how there were people that worked very hard. There's all these people that would show up late to work, and they were absent all the time, and they'd get fired, and they were surprised that they were poor. So it kind of reinforces this coastal idea of like, well, it's their own goddamn fault. Yeah. And then what happened? So the book comes out as an explanation to people living in blue cities of why hillbillies are poor. And by the way, it's not you, it's them. And then he flips, and I wrote this book. Nobody read it, and it's because we've been sold out. So like, I see a lot of like flipping in this guy, and I'm surprised they're not going with that more.
They have. I mean, like they have run the Never Trump side of it, and he became very fetid. I mean, I don't think that the book becomes a bestseller or gets made into a movie if he is not Never Trump when it happens.
Have you guys seen the TikToks of where they put J.D. Vance saying that he doesn't like
Trump?
He's
a Never Trump guy.
Yeah, he's a Never Trump guy, and then they got people dancing to it. It's really cute. I'm really enjoying them. But yeah, they're definitely going with, he is
inauthentic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He is unauthentic. It's obvious.
He has certainly done a U-turn, and if he thought he was done talking about it during his Senate run, spoiler alert, he has not. Now, the question is, from a practitioner perspective, was he a mistake as a pick? And I do think that if you look back now, whether or not this would have happened with Doug Burgum as well, but I do think that there would have been less surface area to hit, and you would have had some sense that Doug Burgum has taken big boy pressure before, where with J.D. Vance, you don't know. He's never been up to this speed with these kind of lights this bright. So we'll see. We'll see how he reacts.
Noting that the more I read, the less I like him as a candidate. I do think he is a smart play from an electoral strategy. The election's going to be determined by about 70,000 people in 6 states. and those are Rust Belt states that are in play. And that means that the actual swing voters that are going to determine the election are literally 0 people in California, 0 people in Texas, 0 people in New York. It's down to these 6, 7 states. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Ohio probably not, but Pennsylvania, places like that. And when you start looking at like the demographics of these 70,000 people, I think he's a very, very smart play. There was an article that came out by Freddie DeBoer, my second favorite Marxist at this time, on his Substack, where he talked about there was a big swell around Kamala, and specifically like black women are going to save this election. And then he just kind of looked at the numbers and he's like, black women constitute 6% of the electorate, and they like Pennsylvania's 80% white and 10% black. Like, it's just, they're not a big enough group to make the swing states count. In terms, like, it's great that they're a part of the coalition, but they're not going to be leading the charge. It's going to be these swing voters in Pennsylvania, Michigan, places like that. And I think he's a very good call for that from an electoral standpoint.
The question is, does he run away some of the suburbs that cost Trump the election in 2020? And are comments like the childless cat lady stuff, is that toxic? Now, I would make the argument that I don't know if there is a single human being on the planet that was like, I'm undecided on Trump.
Yeah.
But this J.D. Vance character is deciding my entire vote. Yeah. I think no matter what, this is going to be determined by what you think about Trump and whether or not you believe that Trump represents stability that we have lost, or if he represents something very scary. That, I think, is ultimately going to be the definition on that side of the aisle. What the Republicans will lose if that is the final question. The Democrats will lose if Kamala Harris shows herself to be the kind of candidate that she was in 2019, and or the Democratic coalition is torn asunder because they are more fragile than they are acting like right now. And I think some of the discussion, I'm sure next week we will be talking about the Democratic vice presidential nominee. But, you know, when you're seeing trending topics like Genocide Josh for the most electorally viable candidate that she could pick, you know, we'll see. We'll see if
Mark Kelly is the best pick.
You could do worse than an astronaut.
He's an astronaut with a twin. It's so cool.
That's what I've said.
And he's a military guy, and his wife was shot. Yeah. So like, there's
She's
like,
if
they get into a debate about gun control, he can just open when my wife was shot. Like, very, very difficult to now neutralize his position. Yeah.
Also in the head.
Yep.
I think it's Shapiro.
That's gonna be a bad pick.
But it'll be an interesting Chicago trip.
I'm still rooting for Doug Burgum. What an incredible unity ticket that would be. I would be swayed. I'm just saying. I'll vote for Harris Burgum.
The announcement event is in
Sounds
Philly.
like an airport.
The announcement event is in Philly on Monday.
What? Announcement of what?
The VP.
Wait, hold on. What state is that in?
Pennsylvania.
Oh, shit.
Oh, God.
It's Shapiro.
Oh, God.
Double check on that Pennsylvania thing.
We're not wrongpod at gmail.com. Jennifer Aniston would like us. We're not wrongpod at gmail.com. Things learned from July 2024. 1, Biden does in fact listen to the Almighty. He just didn't realize that the Almighty takes calls from Pelosi. Number 2, Briney has another reason to love Southwest Airlines. While many fell victim to the CrowdStrike fiasco, Southwest Galactica happily plodded along with their clipped corner notepads and Windows 95 terminals.
Good reference.
And number 3, apparently our slice of the multiverse with its game show host, president, and juries spotting an Arab-friendly mustache is actually just season 8 of Veep. Which is true.
Well-written email, listeners.
If season 8 of Veep is indeed for real, spoilers for this election, but Kamala Harris will become the president and then she loses. If season 8 of Veep, or if the season of Veep that seems to have been tracking with reality does come to the end.
Did you read the Seymour Hersh article, Leaving Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read some of the Red State reporting? The Red State reporting on that? So if you are unaware, Seymour Hersh said that Joe Biden had a medical episode in Las Vegas and that he did not drop out because his inner circle showed him polls that he had just not looked at. He dropped out because he got a call from either party leadership or Barack Obama directly that said, we have Kamala on board. We are going to invoke the 25th Amendment because we know about this medical event that happened in Vegas. And that is when
Journalists on the
out.
plane said he was deathly pale. Like, it was quite the
Red
article.
State, which is a partisan news outlet, but the people that reported it, they're the same people that broke the Katie Hill information. Like, I think that they've shown receipts in the past. They reported that Las Vegas Metro had scrambled to bring him directly to the hospital, and then it was only afterward that they determined they could just put him on Air Force One. So that would mean that the COVID situation was not true, that he had some kind of what has been reported in Red State or speculated in Red State that it was some kind of mini stroke, and it was only when it was determined to be a mini stroke and not an actual stroke that they felt they could treat him on Air Force One. But
yeah, to get the call from Obama that they're going to do the 25th Amendment, like if that's true.
I mean,
But he's fine to be president for the next few months, right? Like, it's not like you need to react quickly or have nuclear codes or anything.
I will say this, and I do have a low opinion of any and all politicians and political parties. The modern Democratic establishment has been
The worst.
1984 level, like, thought policey. Like, I am afraid of the things that they want to keep secret. I do think that we have an endemic problem in our American government of secret keeping.
Yeah.
We saw it play out with Kimberly Cheadle and the Secret Service, where the new guy that came in at the very least was acting like it was his fucking job, that the weight of democracy was on his shoulders to keep these people safe, where she was acting like, no, I don't know, but my benefits. Like,
She did not go to the site. She testified to Congress 9 days after, had not visited the site. Like, that alone, I was like, bitch, you gotta go.
and at least this new guy was like, the first thing I did when I got the call was fly to Butler, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and lie down in the prone position where the shooter shot, and I felt deep shame for what we had done. And I'm like, good answer.
Yep, better than her.
Like, but holy shit. Yeah. Like, the more I think about, and this is before the Seymour Hersh thing, which think what you will about Seymour Hersh.
He knows things.
He certainly is plugged into somewhere.
Yeah.
That explanation feels more realistic. I'll just put it this way. When I wrote and published minutes before Biden dropped out why he wasn't going to drop out, it was modeling the behavior of somebody that would have had to have been told, we know about your stroke. We're going to invoke the 25th Amendment and humiliate you forever if you don't drop out. That would be the kind of thing that would have to happen for the guy I was writing about to drop out.
Yeah.
It was surprising to me that he would say, well, yeah, after getting COVID, I looked at these readily available polls that I could have looked at
And then
forever.
I personally
decided,
wrote this PDF that I put on Twitter. I wrote it myself for sure.
Yeah, like that seemed odd to me. But anyway. Question. Is it time to start thinking about the bird flu?
No.
Is this Bergam fever?
Harris VP writes, having said that, why is no one discussing that RFK Jr. would be a potential pick for Harris? He's pulling real numbers, and I realize that there's a share of people who will ultimately pick Harris or Trump, but wouldn't him being on the ticket pull her numbers up? Is it his COVID stance?
Yeah. Also the fact that he's running as an independent and he's not really a Democrat, and a lot of the people in the party hate him. So, including his own family.
Really hate him.
Yeah. So
Really hate him.
I think they might hate him more than Bernie. Like, Bernie is a more realistic pick than RFK for the Democrats at this point.
Streaks on the China writes, while I enjoy the occasional pilgrimage to the land of cheese, beer, and sausage, long before I ever trod the path to the hollowed cheesemongeries of the Cream City, I knew of one of its most prominent citizens, Bob Euchre. If there was ever a 1980s sitcom that would be in Heaton's Netflix queue between Star Trek and Galaxy Quest, I would have thought it would be Mr. Belvedere, starring Mr. Baseball Euchre himself. How an English butler ends up working for an American sports writer in Pittsburgh is every bit as interesting as a premise for a sitcom as how an Oklahoman laughsman Smith ends up in the Royal Scots Club in Edinburgh producing a podcast.
Wait, so it was Bob Euchre didn't play Mr. Belvedere. No. Bob Euchre was himself, and Mr. Belvedere was his butler?
Yes.
Because I vaguely remember that show from my childhood, but I don't remember any of the characters other than Mr. Belvedere.
Yes.
Okay.
That is the premise. The premise is that he is Bob Euchre, the hilarious actual baseball commentator and sports writer, playing himself. And the wacky twist is that there is an English butler that is bringing them all together. It's kind of a reverse Ted Lasso.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
25th
Amendment rights. I think it's pretty clear that the amount of accidents with inanimate objects are just way too clear a sign of mental degradation that has been visible for all to see. I think Heaton clearly needs to step down and allow Wallace to step forward and take control of this rudderless fuck bus that is desperate need of a strong hand.
Would love to outsource my job to my dog if at all possible. I do think the political orphanage would mostly be an update on who is walking past our house and slight speculation about cats, edible or fuckable. Not sure yet.
The real threat rights. Is it me, or is the real threat to democracy the Democratic elites? What does Jen say to the fact that Nancy Pelosi has kicked Sippy Cup Joe in the pins, taken away Hunter's Coke machine, removed Dr. Jill from the social calendar, and picked the nominee Kamala Harris? No choice for you. Take what you're served, and please do not think for yourself. So amazing to watch the double standards. In general, why is Kamala only a black candidate? What happened to the Asian American side of the XY mashup? I hate politics, but do the Dems think that African Americans just click the box because they mention black? I've heard a couple of channels call her Latin American. Still never heard it mentioned that her family owned slaves. Hashtag just saying.
Wow.
Lot to unpack.
There's a lot there in the end.
Yeah, I don't know why that's directed at me.
I think disregard that because we've already introduced all of your thoughts about this situation earlier in this podcast. But.
Yeah, but the idea that Kamala's family owns slaves, like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah, and I don't think you can hold people accountable for that. Like my family did. We got, in the 50s, we stopped and...
Well, the thing is, like...
Wait, which 50s?
1950.
Oh.
No, like, I don't know
then
how
again
you
in the
hold...
80s.
Satire and analysis.
Satire analysis. We've always been poor. We've always been poor.
But A, we don't know if that's true. That's quite the claim that I've never heard. And if it were true, I don't know how you hold her accountable for something her ancestors did.
Should she? Well, she is for reparations.
Well, okay.
So should she owe reparations?
Sure. I don't know. I don't give a shit. I don't know if it's real. So
yeah.
I'm also not against reparations. I do know that there's been systemic issues that have come out of us enslaving
no tax
people
on Patreon
and
tips.
stealing
No tax on Patreon tips.
And stealing their land. I don't know. I just don't know why the question was directed at me. But
wait, what?
Move on.
Right. 2 DNC candidates that I guess won't happen because no one's talking about it, but just on the basis of good choice. Why not Dean Phillips, the runner-up to the actual primary, who you can get for your what did you know and when did you know it, or more so Bernie Sanders, who has really been the only popular grassroots presidential hopeful in recent memory. How would either of them be bad presidential nominees?
See, Cutie Pie, you're assuming that your vote matters at all to the Democratic Party. And let me tell you, it does not.
Nope.
They hate Dean Phillips because he ran in that fake primary and made it look like a real primary when it really wasn't a primary. And Bernie Sanders, I mean, they've basically rigged it against him twice. So there's your reason your vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's why.
So let's keep track. It was a neutered primary before it became a totally non-existent primary where none of the votes, it just became whose line is it anyway, where the points don't matter. Like a bunch of votes, but who gives a shit? Whatever. At the end of the day, we can just yank that back.
Yeah, Joe Biden, 14 million people voted for me. They matter, except they don't.
Exactly.
At all.
Then he sat on his balls like Mr. Belvedere.
Had to be rushed to the hospital.
Yep. And finally, confessions of an I wish Trump died person writes, I appreciate your healthy discussion around the assassination. I'm firmly in the Democratic camp and have hoped something would knock Trump out. I don't know if there's a thing called assassination ideation or not, but I probably focused on the legal system if I had thought hard enough about how he would be prevented from running. I tuned into Justin's live stream when I first heard about what happened and watched for about one Trump speech of a time. It's not the 1960s was my first thought that triggered me to see if you were live streaming. I quickly got the feeling that I was very happy an innocent, relative to being assassinated person was still alive. There was still a part of me that hoped things had been in 1 inch of the other direction, and then I sat with that thought and why I had it. Fortunately, my partner was supportive enough and let me talk it out. It was one of the most conflicted feelings I've ever had. I wasn't happy I wished somebody dead, but a small part of me did in that moment. Your coverage, Justin, in the following days was great. It helped me play out what would have happened if things were 1 inch to the side, and it would have been worse than I could have imagined. The three of you guys discussing it helped me bring closure to it. Thank you for the great work that you do.
Aw.
That's a really kind. Thank you for admitting that.
Yeah.
That's a good email.
Yeah. You know, sometimes these things are good for national conversation purposes. And that is one thing that when we get into the super, super, super like eyes roll into the back of our heads and we find out that the underside of our eyeballs are either red or blue and we charge at each other and knife each other throughout the next 100 days. I do like when we could turn off that instinct in the off season, because I do think that these kinds of conversations around actual things where we can share community facts without retreating to why we are locked into our political positions are helpful. And sometimes gigantic events like this where we can express without hesitation, I'm glad a man wasn't shot to death on television, and unpack why that is or isn't, is good, because I think it does remind us of collective empathy. We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. This week on PX3, we talk about the actual moves that are being made by the Kamala Harris campaign, her expansion of the map, who she's talking to, who she's not talking to, as well as, and this is on a Friday episode, this is a great one to listen to, especially if you are getting inundated by text messages for fundraising. We go step by step how you can look in publicly available databases to find out which of the texts that you're getting are just out and out make busy work scams. We explain step by step how you can do it and what you need to look for with Dave Leventhal, but that is on PX3 this week. Jen.
I have a Congressional Dish episode where I watched all of the hearings that took place in the House of Representatives about the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. It was 15 hours. It was quite long. I got it down to an hour, and it's just one of those where I'm giving you the testimony, introducing the speakers, and now I have a pretty good idea of what happened from watching those three. There was another hearing that took place after it in the Senate this week, but it's with the new acting director of the Secret Service, and I can't say that there was anything in there that was all that revelatory. So yeah, I think if you listen to that episode, you'll have a pretty good idea, just the facts from the people that would know. And you will definitely understand why the acting Secret Service director had to go.
You were in a gots to go situation with that woman.
Yeah.
Listen to it.
Look,
Highly recommended.
everybody has a bad day. She had a bad day. Give her another chance. The likelihood that same kid can't shoot him because he's dead now, so we're good now.
Yeah.
You know, there so often when I watch hearings like this and you do hear people being like, you should resign. Usually I'm sitting there like, shut up. You know, it's not this person's fault. Cheadle was different. And it wasn't until I watched this hearing where I was like, oh no, you bad. So, yeah, I'm glad I watched it. She had to go. Everyone was right.
Yeah. It was kind of a definition of you had one job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heaton.
I have on Sahaj Sharda this week talking about elite private universities, Ivy League schools, as a college cartel. I actually found out about him through Matt Stoler's newsletter, which I found out through Jen. But basically, my guest this week says Ivy League universities are a monopoly, and they should be treated like a monopoly. And so it's a good economic discussion about how higher ed works. If you want to improve higher education, it's there for you. Also, if you just fucking hate the Ivy League, it's there for you too.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And that'll wrap it up for us today. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. It is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. And for Andrew Heaton and Jen Brandy. I'm Justin Robert Young, and we're not wrong. Meh. Meh.
Use the bathroom real quick.